Hi, it's Mike DelSignore, Massachusetts OUI Lawyer. Today's video, I want to talk about what happens if you're arrested for OUI and your case is going to be heard in Taunton District Court. I've been going to Taunton Court for years. I've been doing this for 20 years. I'm going to give you the benefit of my experience so that you can make a great decision on your case. First things first court date, it's going to be the arraignment. You're going to enter a not guilty plea. If it's your first or even second offense OUI, you'll be released generally on your promise to appear at your next court date. Next court date is going to be a pretrial date. Often those dates can be by Zoom, so you won't have to appear in person. At that date, we're getting the rest of the evidence. So if state police arrest, it takes some time to get the body camera video, generally about 90 to 120 days. So you might have one or maybe even two pretrial dates waiting for evidence. Most of the local departments now have some form of video, and it takes them longer than most people think to get it. It's probably the most common question I get is when's this video gonna when are we going to get it? And there's a little bit of a delay. But once we get all the evidence, then let's say you took a breathalyzer. We might put the case on for a motion to exclude the test. So one of the mistakes a lot of lawyers make, and people make charged with OUI, is rushing into pleas with breath test cases. Win a lot of breath test cases. Now, a lot of people take the breathalyzer, so you can't really do this kind of work without and get success without understanding how to win a breath test case. So don't make the assumption that this isn't a winnable case. I've gotten a lot of breath test evidence excluded from court. That means the judge or jury doesn't consider it. There are different flaws with breath testing. So keep in mind, it's an estimate of your blood alcohol based on science. In other words, there's no blood test. You blew no breath test. Where do we get a blood alcohol? It's doing a conversion. So make sure you understand the science behind these things. And if you took a breath test, it's over 0.08, your license is only suspended for 30 days. After 30 days, you get your full license back. Now, if you refused a breath test, that's good. You lost your license, however, for 6 months if it's your first OUI. However, now it's a more subjective case. Now they don't have that objective evidence against you. The case is going to depend entirely on the field sobriety test, one leg stand, 9-step walk and turn. So a lot of reasons why those tests are not valid, then they're not a reliable indicator of impairment. So it's a winnable case. Either way, OUI, the government has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. It's a high standard of proof. So make sure you understand the laws, the different defenses before rushing into a resolution. If you want to resolve the case, generally what you'll be offered is a continuance without a finding. Now, a continuance without a finding is an admission you drove under the influence of alcohol. It might be a good decision for you, but it's not like it didn't happen. Sometimes people hear the case is dismissed after a year and think, oh, it's like it didn't happen. It's an admission. It's going to be on your record. Higher level of background checks can see continuances without a finding. So there's not a major difference between a quaff and a guilty on an OUI. You're likely to get the same probationary terms if you lose after trial. So don't rush into that plea. That's probably the #1 mistake I see people making. So in Taunton District Court, the arraignment will be in the first session. You'll check in a probation on the second floor. There's a garage where you can park in Taunton as well. The case will probably be heard between 10 and 11:30 on your first court date, and then the next court date will be for pretrial. Then if there's legal issues in the case, like challenges to breath test evidence, challenging a stop or statements you make, then it'll be put on for motion, which is usually heard in courtroom 3. And then finally, if we're fighting the case, it'll be put on for trial. So that's sort of the steps of the process, the court process. So understand when you can get your license back. Make sure you apply for a hearing to get your license back right away if you blew and took a breath test and it's over 0.08, because it's only a 30-day suspension. And then if you refused, if we can get that case to trial quickly and you found not guilty, we might be able to get your license back prior to the 6 months. But it's going to be close to that range. Now, what are some of the defenses to an OUI case? So field sobriety tests, there's a lot of reasons those aren't accurate and reliable. It could be that you have a medical condition that affects your balance. It could have been you were nervous. So there's a lot of different ways to challenge these tests in court. The field sobriety test, when they were studied back in the early 80s, when these things were invented, the one leg stand, 65% reliable. 9-step walk and turn, similarly, 65%. So even when these were studied under ideal circumstances, they weren't precise tests. So when I go to court, I'll make that known to the judge or jury that these tests are not, there's a lot of other explanations, and I can get the officer often to admit that there might be other reasons why somebody might not do perfectly on these tests other than alcohol.